Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you are all well connected and can hear well. I welcome you to this webinar of this afternoon on harmonized standards under the CPR, more in particular on the CPR Acquis, the fast track and standardization quiz development process. So today, I am again the webinar moderator. You'll all be muted during the complete webinar, so please use the Q&A panel to submit your questions should you have any questions. We're many people to connect today, so please bear with us if we are not able to reply all your questions today. As usual, we make a Q&A report available via our website, and you will be informed when that is available. We are recording this webinar, so that will also be made available for you, and the presentation will also be shared. Should you be on Twitter, feel free to talk about the topic. We have a dedicated hashtag training for standards, and Sen and Senelec are available on Twitter at standards for EU. We have a few slides on the speakers because I have the pleasure to be together with a few of my colleagues in the room today. Together with me, there is Nuno, Pavlina, and Alessia, all working for the manufacturing team of Sen and Senelec. On the line connected today, we have Alexandre Beltrao, who is a convener of Sen and Senelec BT Working Group 9, working on a strategy for the construction sector. And then secondly, we have two persons of the European Commission at DG GROW joining us to shed a light on their work done on the construction part, of course. And we have the pleasure to have with us the Director General of Construction Products Europe, Mr. Christoph Sykes. And then last but not least, a few speakers working on the field as experts in some SEN TCs. So thanks a lot to all of you for joining us today. And without further ado, I would like to jump right away into the agenda because it's quite packed, as you can see. We have, of course, a little introduction prepared. We go to the routes for preparation of your harmonized standards on the CPR. So the mandates, the CPR Akey and the fast track will be presented. We plan to have a small coffee break. If we run late, that we will have to skip that coffee break. So please bear with us and remind that it is recorded. So should you not be able to join for the complete session, you can always have a look back if needed. After the break, we go into the standardization request development process in particular, and we guide you to some tools to improve the compliance of harmonized standards on the CPR. We will try to reply as many questions as possible during the presentations, but we have foreseen also a little moment for Q&A at the end, ending with a closure words. So without further ado, I would like to hand over the floor to Alexandre, who should be connected here today. Alexandre, please, the floor is yours.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation to speak at this long-awaited webinar, and welcome to everyone participating today. I have two short slides to set the scene for this workshop today. So if I can have the first slide. So this first slide is about the past, how we got here, to give a little bit of perspective of what happened and how we got it wrong the first time. So the CPR entered into force on the 1st of July 2013, replacing the CPD. So 10 years ago, exactly 10 years ago, give it or take it like 2 days. And the reality is that the CPR was never properly implemented. The standards were not cited. I remember that when this happened in July 2013, I had just arrived in Brussels 6 months ago, and everybody thought that this wouldn't bring many changes. You know, this old CPD standards would be cited in the official journal under the CPR, and everyone would be doing things exactly the same way. Today, you know, in hindsight, we know that that didn't happen, but that was the view at the time. So the stakeholders involved did not move away from the CPD. The approach changed from declaration of conformity to the declaration of performance. And this is a big change, but the standards were not rewritten. So no one realized that that had to be done. And also the state of the art and legal requirements from the member states on basic requirements on construction works evolved, but the CPD mandates, most of them from the 90s, from 30 years ago, were not updated. And so they were not replaced by the standardization requests. And this part is in bold because this is exactly what the CPR Akey is all about. So if we can have the next slide. So the CPR Akey process is this process led by the European Commission to replace the old mandates. So this is something that was never done in the past, and we are doing it for the first time, since the mandates were first issued. And I'm saying this because we already have a lot of initiatives under the CPR, but this one is entirely new because it's really the first time that we are revising the mandates. As you know, there are more than 30 mandates covering the many product families, and these will be dealt following a priority list set by the member states. But as you can imagine, this is a lot of work, and it will take a few years, mainly for the ones at the bottom of the list. But there is a possibility to speed it up, and this is what we'll talk about in this webinar, among other things. So see this as an opportunity, and an opportunity to make the CPR work, the implementation of the CPR to work. So, and on that note, I give the floor to Christoph Sykes, who is the Director General of Construction Products Regulation, Construction Product Europe, not regulation.
Thank you, Alexander. I think you have to end your presentation first. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Christoph, we don't have any slide for you. Is that possible?
No, but oh, okay, I switched the camera on, but it's not been validated, I think.
Yes, we can see you.
Okay, super, thank you. Well, first of all, again, thank you, as Alexander said, thank you to Sen, Nuno, and Oscar at the Commission for organizing this. Indeed, we've been waiting for it, and but patience is the mother of virtue. Just a few words for those starting or involved in the Akey process or waiting their turn. As you wait for your turn, don't stand there and just wait. You can prepare the groundwork already. I mean, look at what's been done elsewhere, read the Commission documents, and start discussing the topics within your associations or your TC. And that's the next message, is really get your product-specific EU associations and the companies involved rapidly, again, before your turn is called up, because the groundwork is really key to this success. As you prepare and wait for your turn, keep an eye on the CPR revision, the Construction Products Regulation. The Council will vote on their position tomorrow. The European Parliament will vote on the 12th of July. And we know that hopefully with those votes being positive, and the trilogues will start in September. So do keep an eye on how the text is shaped in the final weeks and months, because of course that will impact future standards. A word of advice that was shared with me by BIBM, the precast concrete, who were the first to go through the process, and thank you to Alessio, if he's on the call, is really, as you start, your family of products will have numerous products, the old known ones and the innovative ones, and the advice is to start with those that you know better, because if you start with those that you know, it will make the understanding of the Akey process easier, and then you can address those new ones, those more difficult questions that come with innovation and new products. Nuno and Oscar know me well. I always take opportunities, and my opportunity today is to ask both of you, or both institutions, for a little deliverable. For CEN, and we'd be happy to work with you both on this, is to think of drafting a guidance paper for all the next Akey process entry and family of products, because it will help them. Of course, the webinar and the video that will be released will be amazing, but a paper that can be taken into meetings with guidance is always a plus. And last but not least, to the Commission, if they could help us clarify the time frame after the standards requests have been approved, because that will also help understand how the process can evolve and when new standards will be available for the market. So I end my introduction here and wish us all a fluent and interesting, valuable webinar. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Alessandra and Christophe, for this introduction. No questions so far, so if the audience would have questions, please feel free to use the Q&A and have a look at the questions, please. So let's dive further into the topic and have some view on the routes for preparation for the harmonized standards on the CPR. First option, the mandates and the CPR Acquis. If all is good, Oscar Nito is also connected. Oscar, please, the floor is yours.
Hello, I hope you can hear us.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I think the camera is not working now. Okay, now it works.
Yes.
We're trying to have a camera for both, but I think it will be better like this. So first of all, thank you for the invitation to speak today to you about the process for the CPR Akey and how it will impact the work in CEN. I'm here together with Domenico, my colleague, who will go a bit more into the details of the process, and we will also participate during the full workshop to try to reply to your potential questions or your doubts. My part is quite short and easy, is to give you a bit of introduction about the situation, the current situation, and the options we have for the citation of the standards in the current CPR, and also I will give a bit of information also how this will work in the context of the future CPR. So if you go to the next, please. Yes, the first message I want to give is that the work we are doing in the CPR Akey process and all the work in practice we are doing works both in the context of the current CPR and the future CPR. The discussions we are having now with the co-legislators about the new CPR are based on standards. We have the same approach to essential characteristics, and while there is a part that is new, the core of the system remains the same and is based on the performance, declaration of performance of construction products. So you have in the screen how the system works in the current CPR. We have in yellow the old approach in which we had a mandate. The mandate was drafted some years ago, and there was also an option to revise the mandates. And together with this mandate, CEN/DCs were delivering the standard with an answer to the mandate. This is no longer possible. We have a lot of problems to use this approach for the citation of standards. The answer to the mandate is not a system that we are allowing anymore, but this route remains as a possibility. I will explain a bit later how it can be used, but as I said, it will be very limited. In any case, the two second approaches, the CPR Akey process and the CPR Akey fast track, are the preferable options. They are much more explicit, so the documents are clearly established. So you see that after the CPR Akey process, the Commission will draft the standardization request on the basis of the outcome of the process, and this standardization request will include not only the technical content to be included in the standards, but also fixed time frames that will need to be fulfilled by the CEN/DCs. And this is not a fixed timing. It depends on the complexity and the situation of the standards. Once the candidate standards are submitted for the assessment of the Commission. If they are correct, we will cite them in the official journal. If you see in the new CPR, this is exactly the same approach. We are even having discussions in the negotiations on how to make the CPR Akey group a bit more, I would say, regulatory. But in the end, for the technical work, it would be the same. So there will be a technical discussion first. This technical discussion will lead to a standardization request. Same will deliver the candidate harmonized standards, and they will be cited in the official journal. If you go to the next, we can see a bit in summary when and now under what circumstances we could use the old style, the old process for the citation of the standards. So first of all, it's very important, the standard needs to be aligned to the original mandate. So we're not allowed to really have a modification or a change in the mandate through answer to the mandates. It was a process that was launched a lot of years ago. At one point, it was under discussion if it had a really a legal value, and finally it was decided that it was not applicable. So the only way to have a citation of the standard according to the original mandate is if the standard really is aligned to it. The additional element that needs to be considered is that this is a really extraordinary situation, because you know that the old mandates usually are not really up to date. So citing a standard on the basis of outdated characteristics and elements will always be difficult, because we also need to deliver a standard that is valid for the market. So only in cases in which the standard is really correct from the point of view of the mandate. Also, the essential characteristics are enough for the market. And there is no additional pressure to deliver information on any field, for example, environment, or also safety or any technical situation. And there is an urgency for that. We may be able to cite the standard. And even if we fulfill these conditions, if the standard contains stresses on thresholds, we will need to have the adoption of a delegated act. So in summary, this route remains, but is very unlikely that your standards will be allowed to go through this route. And in practice, we prefer to have a preparatory process to the CPR Akey, consolidate the legal content, and you will see that the other two options are much more efficient, and despite being a bit longer, will deliver results much more adjusted to the needs of the market and also to the regulators. So if you go to the next, this is the usual route. This was designed from the very beginning when we started the CPR Akey process some years ago. The process is quite I would say linear. So we have always the Commission coordinating the work. We already launched the 6th group last week, so this is really an ongoing process that is working well, and now we can say for a long time. We have quite an important involvement from the member states. We will always welcome more involvement of member states. For the moment, we can consider that the provision of inputs is very positive. And also we have the possibility for industry to participate, and also we have SMEs, we have NGOs. The process is not only transparent, it's also covering all needs in the market. The problem we found is that first is a big long process. We are having this process over 15 months. Domenico will explain a bit how this is also split in different stages, but this is a long process, and we have limited resources to deal with the number of groups at the same time, which means that in practice we are already quite overloaded with 4 groups, because we also need to work with horizontal topics such as environment, fire, or dangerous substances. The added value is again the possibility to have easy coordination, and the content is clearly developed and validated in the process. As I said, we would like to have more resources and be able to deal with more products, but for the moment, this is not possible. So considering the situation, we decided to open the possibility to have the CPR Akey fast track, which is the next slide, in which we have a system that is a kind of hybrid between the development of content by CEN and the validation in the CPR Akey process. So in this case, the coordination is done by Sentinel Management Center. There is also an involvement of member states, but this involvement takes place either in the same process. So of course, member states are welcome to participate in the synthesis and provide their inputs, but it will also take place later when we will validate the content of the deliverables of the standard of the CPR Akey process, and we will validate it by the CPR Akey group, and these will lead again to the development of standardization requests. We expect that this process will be shorter, but we do not think that it will be very short. So if we are having 15 months for the development of the usual process, this will take also quite a long time, and it will depend on the resources that every TC will want to allocate here. In this case, also, we have the possibility to support the SNTCs, and for this we have our support of the staff of the Commission, but also we have some external support that we will have in the available for you. But this will be much more limited to the work we do in the process. And to finish my part, I would insist on one crucial element. You see that the standardization request in blue is after the CPR Akey fast track or the CPR Akey process, because this is not a task for SEN. This is a task that the Commission will develop. So we will have we will draft the standardization request on the basis of the CPR Akey inputs. This standardization request will be consulted with stakeholders and with SEN, and voted by member states through the legal process that is included in the standardization regulation, and will, as I said, include clear deliverables, the standards to be delivered, the time limits, the deadlines to deliver these standards, and we think that it will give the necessary technical and regulatory content to facilitate the development of standards. And then synthesis will be able to deliver these candidate harmonized standards under a basis that is clear and really easy to implement. We are also working with SEN to facilitate the drafting of the standards, but for the moment we are really focused on develop very good standardization requests that hopefully will be cited in the official journal just after they are sent to us by SEN. And this is what I wanted to say, so I now give the floor to Domenico to continue with our slides. Thank you.
Dominic?
Yes, good afternoon.
Okay, all good.
You hear me well?
Yes.
Just one second. Okay. No, I will connect myself with the Oscar's laptop. One second. Yes, now you know that we are both in the same room. Yes, many thanks for this clarification. As we have seen from the slides presented by Oscar, these three routes, now we focus the second route, which is the one of the normal CPR Akey route. And let's focus from the reason why we had to plan the CPR Akey route, the CPR revision. Well, there are two main reasons why we had to adopt a series of measures, which are the legal and technical requirements applying to the construction further regulations. Of course, those requirements are coming from the text of our regulation, but also are coming from a series of core judgments that, starting from our sector, have impacted all the standardization sectors. Those requirements impacted our sector in a way that in the last 3 years we have cited only one standard. we rejected under the construction product regulation almost 140 standards. Of course, one of the reasons is also that we have a set of very old mandate, as Alexandra has explained before. But in any case, we have a number of shortcomings on all the standards that we have rejected that is really impressive. Here we have reported the main shortcoming and the rate of their occurrence standards. You will see that we're talking that 36% of the standards rejected contain the first two issues. There is additional requirement or the inappropriate wording belonging to the construction product directive area. This means that we did not reject a standard just because of one reason. We had several reasons of non-compliance with the construction product regulation and with those legal requirements applying to us. Then the other block of reason why we had to find a new solution was the EU green policies. So everything that we have at the level of the European Union, all our green targets will impact also our sector. Now you have to consider that we have nothing, no construction products that declare anything under the Basic Work Requirement 7. So this is the sustainable use of natural resources, where we could implement a declaration of environmental sustainability. We also did not have a platform of experts discussing these aspects. But another very important point in this framework is the fact that there are several policy initiatives at the level of the construction ecosystem, and the construction product are the starting point. The information that we provide through the declaration of performance will then be used to implement other initiatives. And that's very fundamental, and one of the reasons why we had to implement the series of measures that we have taken. So next slide. So to take up these two very important aspects and to meet our objectives, there are two things that we have done. The first one is to work on the revision of the current CPR. We have presented a text that goes quite beyond the boundaries of a revision. We say that it's a new regulation because the new elements are so important that create the condition to call them not a revision but a new regulation. But the CPR alone is not enough to take up the problems on the ground that we have seen are many. We need to complement this process with the CPR Akey process. This is to revise all the legal acts that we have in our sectors. This is to revise the old mandates that are in some cases 25 years old. Only through this combination, only joining forces at the level of the CPR Akey and the legislative provision of the new CPR, we can manage to have a well-functioning internal market for construction products, ensure that we will match the goals of the European Green Deal. But the CPR Akey, let me just remark a couple of principles of this process that aims to be a very transparent process. We are comprehensive. We try to involve experts of the member states, experts of the industry. In principle, we are not rejecting any application to join the work of these subgroups. We try to be very open and transparent. We want to all the interested parties to contribute. And this has to be very future-oriented. What do we mean for future-oriented? This means that with the CPR Akey process, we cannot consider the boundaries of the current CPR. We have to go beyond those boundaries. We have to consider already the new provision included in the proposal for the new CPR. Next slide. This is just to report you a bit on what will be the impact of having the new CPR and then the CPR Akey process. On the upper side, above the wave, you see the situation with the joint forces of the CPR Akey and the new regulation and the new CPR. In the scenario that we are working on, it's likely that when the new CPR will enter into force, the first subgroups of the CPR Akey will have already progressed with the standardization request updated with the new provision of the new regulation. And so the first standards corresponding to the first standardization request may arrive in a very reasonable amount of time. We have indicated even within 1 year from the entry into force. And then we will have the following subgroups that at the end deliver the elements to draft standardization request immediately after. What would be the scenario in time if we would not profit from the CPR Akey process? The scenario is that we will have to start the preparation of the standardization request and all their comprehensive elements with the entry into force of the new CPR, and then starting following the adoption of the standardization request to set the standard. So the outcomes, and for outcomes we mean the citation of new harmonized standards, will arrive very late on time. Next slide. This is a bit to explain you the relation between the new CPR and the CPR Akey. I've already said that CPR Akey has to be future-oriented, and this is in relation with the text of the new CPR. In the CPR Akey, we consider the elements of the proposal for the new regulation. The proposal for the new regulation does not change any substantial thing on the performance-based approach, but on the top of this approach, add a series of elements. I will limit myself only to mention you the possibility to consider also product inherent requirements, information requirements. All these requirements can be established by the Commission via delegated act, and then manufacturers be allowed to attest the conformity following voluntary harmonized standards. Of course, these are the provision of the proposal. We have already announced that there are discussions. We have the Council going to discuss the proposal tomorrow at Coreper, so we will know much better how the final text will look like in the coming months. But this is the concept. So the CPR Akey follows the boundaries of the new CPR. At the same time, the CPR Akey is already implemented before the new CPR enters into force. And so we have the possibility to test some of the provision included in the proposal, or the possibility to identify elements that we have overlooked, elements to be added to ensure that we will deal with the construction products in a very correct way. This means in practice that if we identify important elements in the CPR Akey to address very relevant aspects of products, we might consider to introduce something in the text of the new regulation which is under discussion. Next slide. Yes, what is our main goal? The main goal, you have seen how many shortcomings we had in the past, how many standards we have rejected, how many legal requirements apply to our sector. We need to ensure the highest quality for future technical specification. How can we get that? We can get it only if we have discussion at product level and we try to identify with a certain degrees of completeness all the elements, the technical elements of a standardization request. And we are referring to the products to be covered, the intended uses, the list of essential characteristics, and all the elements related to the essential characteristics. We mean classes of performance, threshold levels, and also what has been introduced in the proposal of the new CPR. So everything that is related to information and inherent requirements. The final goal is clearly to draft new standardization requests, renewing dual mandates, and including all these aspects to have a new generation of standard up to the level of technology, but also fully complying with the legal and technical framework. Next slide. Now let's go back to another important principle. While we have certain product family that have already started to work on the CPR Akey, and while there are other ones queuing, it was not me, Oscar, that played on cards and decided which were to be tackled first. But in 2021, we started a consultation with the member states. We explained that we needed to start this process. And with member states, we identified a series of criteria that could be used to identify our priorities. Next slide. With the member states, at the end, we identified 8 criteria relevant for the identification of priorities. As you can see from this slide, not all the criteria had the same weight. There were some criteria that counted more than the other. In particular, the criterion of member states' regulatory needs and the criterion of safety issues related to the basic requirement for construction works. Then we had also other criteria related to the environmental aspects, cross-border trade issues, and so on. These were all considered, but with a different weight. Next slide. At the end, member states attributed point to all the product family in relation to those criteria. And at the end, we ended with this list of priorities, where precast concrete, structural metallic products resulted the first 2 product family to tackle. The work on these 2 families started already. The work at the level of the subgroups is substantially concluded, and we are refining the draft standardization request. Then we started reinforcing steel for concrete and pre-stressing steel together with doors and windows. The work is ongoing, and we aim at concluding the work by the end of this year to start the drafting of the standardization request. We have also started 2 subgroups this month on cement and thermal insulation products. Consider that from the moment of start, we have 15 months to complete the work of a subgroup and deliver the outcome. After 15 months, we quickly prepare the text of the standardization request, and we start the consultation that Oscar has very duly explained before. Standardization request has another falls in another remit, much more formally structured within the competence, in particular of the Commission and member states. I would like to highlight to you that we have also started a subgroups on on environmental sustainability of construction products. This is an horizontal subgroup. We started this at the end of last year. We have already delivered some outcomes. These were very relevant for the 2 the 2 first subgroups, but work is still progressing. What does it mean, an horizontal subgroup? An horizontal subgroup means that all the discussion that occurred there, all the outcomes, has to be respected at the level of the product subgroup. So if something is decided at the level of environmental sustainability, like the declaration, just to make a very simple example, of a particular essential characteristics applying to all the products, this has to be respected. Of course, we are not so rigid. We leave a certain degree of freedom to the product-specific subgroup, because we understand that it's very difficult that the same elements can apply without modification to all the construction products. This is very a remote scenario. As you can see from the slide, we have all those product family queuing. Some of them have to remain necessarily in the framework of the CPR Akey for their regulatory importance at the member states level. Other one we will see also in the presentation of next colleagues are those who might be considered for fast track route. Next slide. Very quickly, the structure and the governance of the CPR Akey. We have the level of the steering group, mainly composed by member states and few representative of the main organization, which is the coordination level. And then we have all the subgroups where the discussion at technical level occur with all the experts, both from the industry side and the member states. Next slide. This is something that may be more interesting for you, because this is the, every time we start a subgroup, we have a work program. Attached to this work program, we have a Gantt chart to understand how the work will progress of the subgroup. From this slide, you can see the detailed list of tasks to be performed in the context of the work of a subgroup. These are relevant also to you, because these are aspects that those who will decide to undertake the fast track routes will also have to consider. As you can see, we, for the subgroups, where we have consultation with industry, stakeholders, member states, our target is to complete the work in 15 months. We think that 15 months is a reasonable amount of time to deliver. You have to imagine that even if we have very complicated product family, there are other product family queuing, waiting for the work to be completed in the product family underway to start their work. So it's very important that we spend the time that is needed in this work, and then we go to the next product family. It's very important that we try to respect this time frame of 15 months. So far, we had some delay due to the fact that the first two subgroups had to wait for some information to be delivered from the horizontal subgroup on environmental sustainability, but substantially it seems that the time frame of 15 months is enough to complete the work. Next slide. These are our main documents. We have rules of procedure and working arrangements that we have to respect in the CPR Akey process. We have developed a CPR Akey guidance that was recently updated in February this year. After we presented the proposal, we had to align the CPR Akey guidance to the text of the proposal. Each subgroup has a work program, and of course we use Teams as a platform to share information, have exchanges with the experts. So, of course, Teams and rules of procedure and working arrangement are not relevant for those of you who will undertake the fast track route, but reading the CPR Akey guidance and having an idea of a work program of a subgroup will be very important for you to understand what we expect that is delivered by the fast track route. And we can go to the next slide and just briefly introduce you what is the state of play of the CPR Akey. We have started the work with the precast concrete and structural metallic products. The work is a bit delayed because we were waiting for some information on environmental sustainability. That's why you see the arrow. But we are refining those outcomes and preparing the draft standardization request. We have reinforcing pressurizing steel and also windows, as I said, underway, about to deliver by the end of the year. Cement, thermal insulation products, and ethics just started. The subgroup in green on environmental sustainability that will never stop to work, in the sense that we have a series of very important milestones to be delivered as soon as possible, because this will apply to all the products or to the majority of the products. But then we need also a continuous check and double check with these subgroups, because this is in practice really a new field for us, because we have nothing at the level of declaration of performance on basic core requirement 7. And then in purple, you see that we start to introduce in our Gantt chart also the fast track route, with a potential start of these two routes for two product area and another technical committee that might decide to start a few months after, with the planning of having this work completed in 12 months. Well, 12 months because we think that we can do better than in the normal route, which is following a time frame of 15 months. We think that reducing the consultation with member states per month is enough. And that concluded, you can find more information on the CPR Akey in the next slide that indicates the link. Let me just maybe complete this presentation, clarify the technical support in this process. We have Mr. Andrade and Mr. Salazar who are supporting us in the work of the subgroup, in particular on all the product-related subgroup. Then we have 3 consultants from the Danish Institute of Technologies, Mr. Robert, Mr. Finholm, and Mr. Elbeck, who support us in the subgroup for environmental sustainability and that will support us also in the fast track route. So those of you who might decide to undertake this route will also benefit from the support of this consultant that we think very important to ensure that the fast track route will deliver important outcomes to be transformed and transferred in the future standardization requests. Well, we have concluded this presentation. Thanks for your attention.
Yes, thank you, Oscar and Domenico, for this interesting intervention and for the many slides you provided. As promised, they will be shared with all of you later on. So let's go to the fast track now. My colleague Pavlina is sitting next to me and she will take the floor now. Thank you, Pavlina.
Thank you and hello, everybody. So I'm going to cover in my presentation the fast track route. So the fast track route is an initiative of the European Commission with the support of Senelec. And the main target of the fast track route is to assist technical committees that are very low in the priority list of the CPR Akis. So technical committees that normally needed to wait many years for their turn to come in the CPR Akis, they will have the possibility to replace the corresponding subgroups of the CPR Akis. And by meaning replacing the corresponding subgroups, we mean that the technical committees will be responsible for conducting the technical work and as well organize and coordinate the work. So under the fast track route, the work will not be under the EC lead and coordination. The TCs will need to provide all the necessary input to the Commission in a relative tight time frame of approximately 12 months, and this input shall include release of dangerous substances and environmental sustainability. The work shall be in line with milestones 1 and milestone 3 of the CPR Akis, and you will notice that we are not referring to milestone 2 and milestone 4 under the fast track route, because those milestones are related to the Commission organization, so are not applicable under the fast track route. In order to fulfill the fast track route, PCs should utilize templates prepared by the Commission. And here in the screen, you have a picture. The picture in the back is a part of the template. Those documents were circulated yesterday to all technical committees. And as you can see, there is a text with black, which is the stable text, a text with red font, which is the input requested by the technical committees, and with blue, there will be some examples in order to assist technical committees and clarify what is expected from them. As well, yesterday, a guidance document produced by BT Working Group 9, which is the strategy for construction sector, was circulated. We strongly recommend to go through the guidance document and contact your project manager if something is not clear. This guidance document includes all the steps that TCs should fulfill in order to undertake the fast track route. A very important point regarding the fast track route is exactly as under the CPR Akis, all the input will be approved by the steering group. of the CPR Acquis. And the steering group, we mean the Commission and Member States. Here in this slide, you have the list of product families for which the fast track route can be considered. This list was produced by the Commission. The product families have been identified by the Commission as the ones that for which regulatory interest of the Member State is low. It's important to highlight that there is no priority order, so we don't have to follow an order for this list. Technical committees, they are free to initiate the fast track route whenever they consider is beneficial and whenever they are ready. At the moment, we have 2 CEN technical committees working under the fast track route, and this is CEN-TC 129, glass in buildings, working under mandate 135, which was initially ranked under the CPR Acquis in position 28, and CEN-TC 166, chimneys, working under mandate 105, which was initially ranked under the CPR Acquis on position 33. And I will briefly summarize the steps for the fast track route. So the first step for technical committees to consider is if the product family is applicable for the fast track route. So based on the previous list, if the product family is included. If it is, there are 2 options: that the product family could be covered by only 1 TC, and in this case, the TC expressed the interest and submit a request to CCMC. If the product family is covered by more than 1 TCs, the technical committee interest on the fast track route should contact the project manager, who will organize a meeting between the TCs in order to ensure collaboration or discuss the possible options. Both cases, TC or TCs, should submit a request to CCMC. This request should include the TCs to be involved, if there are more than 1, a time schedule with concrete deadlines for the relevant steps for the input, and information whether the TC is interested in renewing the whole scope of the mandate without extending the scope, so with no adding additional products, for example, or if the TC is interested in renewing only a part of the old mandate or in extending the scope of the old mandate. Be careful, when we are referring to only a part of the old mandate, that's not applicable for only 1 year. So we strongly recommend that if technical committees could not, or they're not willing to provide input for the whole mandate, at least the majority of the products covered by the old mandate will be included. So in case that the whole product family is included, will be renewed and there is no extension, the TCs, firstly, they are strongly advised to consider the need to develop or revise, if needed, a product category rule, which will be used in the future as assessment method for environmental sustainability. In parallel, they will have to gather the input for milestone 1 and milestone 3. With milestone 1, we are referring to the products to be covered, as well forms and materials wherever that's applicable, and products covered by European assessment documents, and as well specify the intended uses. Whereas with milestone 3, we are referring to the list of essential characteristics. Here is very important to note that release of dangerous substances and environmental sustainability shall be included. Regarding the release of dangerous substances, there are some mandates that had an amendment to the mandate, and regarding the release of dangerous substances. So if that's the case for 1 TC, we strongly recommend to take this document as a base. If not, there is an indicative list of regulated dangerous substances produced by the Commission in the past. If you don't have access to it, you can always contact your project manager to provide it. And take into account the horizontal methods produced by CEN-TC 351. And regarding the environmental sustainability, I already referred to the PCRs, and that TCs will have to consider the development or the revision of PCRs, and as well take into account that except the essential characteristics, scenarios and functional declared units shall be included. Moreover, milestone 3 includes assessment methods per essential characteristic and the way to declare performance of construction products in relation to the essential characteristics, so identification of classes and thresholds. Last but not least, in milestone 3 is the identification of the requirements related to the product including inherit requirements and information requirements, specifically for the cases that those were included in previous versions. So standards that are today cited in the official journal, and those requirements are not performance-based. However, if the TC cannot identify any requirements, this part of the template could be left empty. If when the TC gathers all the input for milestone 1 and milestone 3, a TC consultation by CIB should be launched in order to ensure consensus in the TC, and if that's approved, the input will be sent to the steering group for approval. In the other case, that the TC or the TCs are interested only in renewing partially or extend the product family, again, it's strongly recommended that they have to consider the need to develop or revise a product category rules, and in parallel, they have to collect input for milestone 1. So they have to indicate the product and the intended uses, and as well clarify the products that they will not be covered and why. Here we have a two-step approach. So we first gather the milestone 1 input, then we ensure consensus in the TC, and we submit it to the steering group for approval. If milestone 1 is approved by the steering group, then technical committees will have to collect the input for milestone 3, which is exactly the same milestone as we saw before. A TC consultation by CIB again, so being undertaken to ensure consensus, and then if it's approved, the document will be circulated to the steering group for approval. It's very important as well to note that under milestone 3, it's strongly advised to take into account member regulatory needs. And a last point is that all this input gathered by the technical committees shall always be provided to CCMC and not directly to the European Commission. So you always have to contact your project manager in order to clarify and identify the next steps. And that was my last slide.
Yes, thank you, Pavlina. We also have the pleasure to have Anne Min present today. She's chair of the CENTIC 129 Glass and Buildings. So Anne, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Els. Can I have the control on the slides as I requested?
Yes.
Yeah. Do I have to click somewhere or is it okay?
So you have to share the screen. So you have to go, we'll stop from here.
Oh, okay. I have to use my own presentation, you mean?
Yes.
Okay. I think I have to ask. I cannot share. I can only ask for the control.
Yes, it should be fine now.
Okay, good. So thank you and good afternoon, everybody. So thank you to give me the opportunity to present what CENTIC 129 will do. Do you see the screen? I don't see anything.
No, not yet.
Okay.
Can you do it again?
Yeah, I will do it again. Now, what do you see?
Yes, there you are. It's not in full screen mode yet.
Coming. Okay, which one of the screen do you see?
We see the preview of the next slide already.
Okay, and then I have, oh gosh. Well, I think I will stop and you will do it for me because otherwise we will lose too much time, okay?
Yes, that's fine too.
Yeah.
I'm going back then.
Because after all, it's not the most important.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I see it. So next slide, please.
Yes.
Before explaining what we have done at CENTIC 129, perhaps shortly, I would like to present the glass sector. So, in fact, glass is a big sector because it is made of more than 1,000 companies and more than 110,000 jobs. We are producing each year about 10 megatons of glass per year for a turnover of more than 15 billions. And if you look at the global production of glass, 80% of the total production of flat glass is used in buildings. So for us, building is an important market. And we are using mainly European raw material. So next slide, please. So here a short explanation again, because when we are speaking about glass sector, we have in fact different activities. We have the production of the raw glass coming from sand and raw materials. And here we have 60 factories in Europe, owned by 6 producers. And then we have a lot of companies who are transforming the glass, who are making insulating glass, toughened glass, laminated glass. And those are, of course, the clients of the big players. So we are working together because finally we are producer and clients. So we are in this kind of relationship. Next slide, please. So the situation of the CEN/TC 129 is explained here below. You see in the graph that our standards are rather old because they were mainly cited in 2005 and 2006. So we had 2 cited in 2009 and 2 in 2004. All those in blue were cited under the CPD. And we were lucky enough to have 3 standards cited under the CPR, 2 of them being the revision of standards cited before that in 2005. They are no longer in the chart. Beside that, we have in total 85 published standards that are mainly test method, measurement method, and all these, let's say, supporting standards to help define the characteristic that we have to declare and that are listed in the 18 harmonized standard. Next, please. So here another explanation of the situation. So in the pie chart in green, you have all the standards that are cited. So the 3 that are cited under the CPR. Then we have 5 that have been cited under the CPD, that have been revised, proposed for citation and rejected, although they were made on the same template than the 3 that has been cited. 10 that has not been revised, that are cited, but we have stopped the revision because as our standards are almost always built on the same template, if the 5 cited has been rejected, we had no chance to have the 10 others being cited. So we have worked on the way to unlock the system to have our standards cited, but we have failed all the time. So beside that, we have proposed 2 new standards together with the 5 that have been rejected, and they have also been rejected. We are ready with 3 other new standards that we have kept on hold because we realized that we were losing our time trying to have it cited, and 12 other standards are waiting to be written. So in total, that means that we are expecting at the end of the exercise to have about 35 harmonized standards, although there is a discussion if we can maybe regroup some of them, but this is the work program. Next slide, please. So this is the list of the priorities. Next. So you see above the line, the one that has already started, and below the one that are queuing. Next. Then glass is priority 28, so we are not well ranked. Next. And the problem we have is that our main client, which is windows and doors, were priority number 4. Curtain walling is priority 15. It is not clear today if they will be together with windows and doors, or if they will start the fast track procedure, or if they will be queuing. But in any case, next. We have a problem because windows and doors are our main customers. And if you see, if we wait our turn, it will be 6 years between them and us. So that means that when they will have their new standardization request, they will probably be obliged to declare or to provide other information. A part of this information will have to come from the glass. But for us, the legal framework will not be ready, and we will have to wait 6 years before it will be our turn. So it is a big problem. Next. So besides that, we have some critical problem next. The first example is the standard on heat soak thermally toughened glass. I will not explain what it is, but I will explain the problem. So perhaps you can click up to the sentence in red. Thank you. So the problem we have with this standard is that we are referring to another part of the same standard that has been published in 2005. And the reference we are making in the Harmonized standard is dated. But as the standard has been revised in 2016, in fact, the cited version of the hEN, because of the dated reference, we cannot use the new version of the standard. And the new version of the standard contains a temperature cycle that is referred to in 3 national regulations. So the regulation of the Netherlands, of Czech Republic and Croatia. And here we have a juridical problem because either we respect the national regulation or we are in conformity with the CE marking. But doing both together is not possible, because if we want to be conforming to the CE marking, we are obliged to use the thermal cycle defined in the version of 2005. And if we want to be compliant with the national regulation, we need to be using the cycle defined in 2016. So we have a problem there. Another problem we have, and you can also go directly to the sentence in red, else, it is with the standard on laminated glass. The standard has been cited in 2006 and make reference to a series of EN ISO standard that has been published in 1998. So it's very old, 25 years. This series of standards that comprising mainly test method has been revised twice already, and we are still obliged to use the obsolete version of 1998 because the standard is dated in our cited Harmonized standard. So this is also a big issue. We have no real legal problem with this, but it's more a technical problem because if you revise a standard, you have good reasons to do so. So we are still obliged to use the obsolete version. Next, please. So then we decided to go to the fast track procedure, and we have seen several opportunities for that. The possibility to use up-to-date standards more quickly, because if we have to wait our turn, then we will be starting maybe with new standard publishing in the 30s. We can also complete the set of standards we need. So it is all the standards that are not in green in the pie chart. Then we will solve the legal issue we have with the national regulation and the CE marking requirements. And we will be aligned with our major customers because doors and windows are the main use for glass in building. But yes, and also this is important, we sometimes forget about it, but when the working group is not working because everything is blocked, then the experts are not replaced when they change job in the companies or when they go to their retirement and so on. And then we are losing expertise. So being able to continue to work is also a way to keep the expertise in the working group and in the TC. So now the difficulties we have seen. Next click. Yeah. In fact, as we are alone, so we are working with CEN, we are working with the TC expert and so on. We do not have the support of the member states to list the national requirements. So there is a risk to miss some of them because in our technical committee, we do not have experts from all countries. So this is a major risk. We should take care about this. We have a slightly shorter time frame, so we need to be very well organized, and it was not easy for us because as you have heard from Pavlina, the guidance was published yesterday. So we were working with the help of CEN, of course, and with the information we get from other groups that have started the CPR Acquis, mainly windows and doors. Next, please. And also, because we had no guidance, there was always a risk to misunderstand what was expected. So now I have seen the guidance this morning. I had a look on this, and it seems very complete, very well written. So we hope that with this, we will check that our work is really what it is expected from us. Next, please. So here, in fact, we have started to prepare the work in January already. Next. So at the beginning of January, CEN contacted us because they had a discussion with the European Commission, and they have selected our TC to be one candidate for the fast track. So they proposed it to us and we have accepted. And then what we have done, we have created a small other group with only 4 people. But with those 4 people, we have the conveners of the majority of the product working group, in fact. And also, I should say that 2 members of this small ad hoc group are also members of the CPR Akey group on doors and windows. Then we have received a draft Excel file from CEN with the characteristic. It corresponds to milestone 3, at least the first part of it, because now we have other tasks to do that. And we have tried the work. Then we had, click please, we had an intermediate meeting in March with CEN, where we have presented the work that we have prepared. So our first draft, if I can say so. Next. And also end of March and in April, we have organized informative sessions. One with Glass for Europe, which is the European Association of Glass Producer and Glass Transformers, and 3 for the CEN TC experts. So for the experts in all working groups, we really try to contact everybody. So not only at the TC level, but also at the working group levels, to have as many people concerned as possible. So it is like Christophe said at the beginning, we need the support of the industry through the association, and we need the support of people involved in the work. And this is what we have done with the session at the CEN TC level. Next, please. Then we have got feedback from countries, but not all of them. So we don't know if the countries who do not react didn't say anything because they were happy with what we have prepared, or if it is just because they don't feel comfortable with it. With what we have got, we have updated the Excel file, and we have also prepared the document for milestone 1. So it's perhaps a little bit strange that we do milestone 1 after milestone 3, but it is only because at the beginning we receive only the Excel file for milestone 3. So now we have prepared also a first draft for milestone 1. And then, please, we had a meeting. Can you click? Yes, we had a meeting, an intermediate meeting with CEN and the EC. This month, we sent our draft in advance, and then we had a very fruitful discussion with the Commission, who give us some advice and some ask questions and so on the work we have done. And now we have more guidelines to continue and to improve our work. Next slide, please. So quickly, because I will not enter into detail, but it is how the Excel file looks like. So you see we have in column the different characteristics, and in line the different standards, and in the cell we put the assessment methods and the possible classes. But that's just an example. You are not obliged to follow this, but now you have a guidelines, but I have put these slides to give you an idea on how it can be done. Next, please. So now for the future, with the comments we have got from the Commission, we will improve our draft documents for milestone 1 and milestone 3. We will also complete the work with the guidelines. Oh, I have done something wrong. Yeah, so, and when we will be ready, we will make 2 checks. First check is to contact the national contact points. We haven't done that at the beginning, although I advise people who would like to start the fast track to do it at the beginning. So we will submit them our documents and ask if it is completed. And then next point, we will do a ballot within CEN TC 129 to ask for comments. So we will send the document we have prepared, and we will ask the expert to check what we have done and to think again if we haven't forgot something. So with those two checks, we will be able to prepare a more finalized version. And then click yes. Then in the guidance that we have received yesterday, we are covering all the aspects. So we knew that we will have to prepare it. So that's the reason why in this presentation, I do not make reference to the guidelines because I prepared that before, but we will have to deal with the sustainability aspect. We will also make the list of the relevant inherent product requirements and the relevant information requirements. And this is something that we will start after the summer holidays to be prepared with all the requested information. Click, please. So as a conclusion, we are very motivated because you have seen at the beginning that we have several problems and we have several standards on hold. So we are motivated to continue and to unlock the situation. It's not always easy because, well, first, we are among the first one to do it. And we have started without guidance. So now it will be easier because we have a very clear document and very complete document that we can follow. And you should also keep in mind that the work has to be done anyway. So for us, we believe that the sooner, the better. And this is the reason why we apply for the fast track. So thank you for your attention. And yes, feel free to ask any question at the end of this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anne, for sharing the work done by your TC. We've invited another CNTC, more in particular, Mr. Dieter de Lathouwer and Julia Goerke, who are here for explaining their experiences. So please, Dieter, the floor is yours.
Okay. Situation today. Manufacturers need an environmental declaration for France, one for Belgium, one for Portugal, etc., etc. And this is very annoying for manufacturers that the environmental information needs to be tailor-made per member state. Okay, so as you said, my name is Dieter Lathouwer. I'm happy to be the chair of this CNTC 350, and I'm joined by Julia Goerke, convener of Working Group 3. And together we will give you an introduction to the processes on, more specifically on how to implement environmental essential characteristics in your harmonized product standards, and also the relation between the product TCs and CNTC 350. Important to notice is that we will focus on environmental indicators based on life cycle assessments. So that is more related to EPDs or environmental product declarations. This could be a little bit broader. Next slide, please. Okay. So the currently deployed construction products regulation contains two basic requirements for construction works related to an environmental life cycle. And as most of you know, it also contains recital 56. And this recital states that the environmental product declaration should be used for the environmental characteristics. Until now, this has not yet been implemented. And so with the upcoming delegated acts on a new AVCP system 3+, and also with the work currently done in the CPR Akey process, which has been extensively presented today, the implementation of environmental characteristics is finally taking off. The European Commission will then include these essential characteristics in the standardization requests. Member states will be involved. And this also means, as Pavlina stated, that product TCs will have to establish complementary product category rules, so named CPCRs. And these contain calculation rules specifically for your product group, and that should then lead to uniform declarations, one declaration covering all member state needs. And as I said, TC 350 plays an important role in this. Next slide. So CNTC, this is CNTC 350, the structure of CNTC 350, I'm the chair, and I'm doing this together with Karin Dari from AFNOR. We are a horizontal committee. We are dealing with the three pillars of sustainability: environmental, social, and economic performance, and we're doing this for both buildings and civil engineering works. There's also some standards on refurbishments, and also rather recently, we have a subcommittee with a focus on circularity in the construction sector. So what is important in this slide is that Working Group 3 is the one you have to deal with, which is the main working group on product levels, on the product level and dealing with EPDs. And so if any of the product TCs have a question regarding environmental characteristics, you can address it to that product level. One click and next slide. Yeah, so this is a small and vague overview of the standards we have developed. But the highlight is, of course, besides the EN 5978, the EN 5978, I just quickly want to mention it because it is referenced to in levels EPBD and EU taxonomy. It's currently under revision, and it's the standard to assess the environmental performance of buildings. So this is a very important one. But for the scope of today, the most important one is the EN 15804 and the EN 5941. These are the main important reference documents, and Julia will explain more about them. Additional rules to these two core rules will be included in the standardization request, and this is also important. So the European Commission will, on the basis of consultation of member states, may overrule certain parts of the EN 15804 and complement certain elements or ask for specific scenarios or specific rules. Next slide, please. So why is TC350 involved? Well, construction products should be assessed at works level. This is quite important, and therefore it's also important that the product category rules, the calculation rules, are uniform over Europe, and they are consistent so that we can aggregate them. And on the basis of that, SNBT has made two decisions. Quickly introducing them. So complementary rules, they must be compliant with EN 15804, and also the product TCs, you should inform us and liaise with us when you start working on it. And as Julia will explain later on, we have procedures, and it is recommended by SNBT to follow them and include us in the inquiry and formal vote phase. This was in a nutshell the general overview and who and what TC350 is, and I will now pass on the floor to Julia, who will go a bit more into detail. And up to you, Julia.
Thank you, Dieter. So hello, everybody, and good afternoon from South Germany. My name is Julia Görke, and I'm pleased to introduce EPDs to you today, and with some background information on the development process and the need for PCRs. First, I will start with an introduction of the EPD. So firstly, the standard. What you see here in Europe, we have the basic rules for EPDs, Environmental Product Declaration, in EN 15804. Next slide, please. And next slide is to the question, what is an EPD? An EPD, I hold one in my hand, is based on EN 15804. It is a document of 8 to 10 pages, contains data of the life cycle assessment, so results for global warming potential, for instance, or primary energy use. It considers a product from cradle to grave, is independently verified, and follows the so-called product category rules. On the next slide, please. Let's have a look into or inside of an EPD. So the content of an EPD are, for instance, product and production information. We have some information on the verification process. So the third-party verification that is needed for an EPD. And then I would like to draw your attention on the center of an EPD, which is the table with the LCA results. Global warming potential, for instance, ODP. So what you see here, if you could go back, please. Thank you. What you see here is the table with the LCA results, and this follows a modularity, so a modularity principle, so from A1 to D. And this modularity allows the building planner to assess a building with data provided in this modular format, from cradle to grave. Having said this, I hope this gave you a short introduction or an idea on what an EPD is. And now to the development process. Next slide, please. Firstly, it's important to consider EN 15804, which contains the more general rules. And then it's important that the product TC develops the so-called complementary product category rules. They are meant to specify product-specific aspects like the functional unit, so whether it's a square meter or a ton. It specifies the different life cycle stages. This is product group specific and needs to be specified in the so-called CPCR. With the large number of product standards, next slide, please, which I like this image. So it illustrates the variety of products or standards in a building. So the house full of standards, and here there is a need for the CPCRs. Next slide, please. So some product TCs already started or finished this exercise to write in CPCR. Here you see the first published CPCR documents, for instance, resilient textile and laminate floor coverings, flat glass products. So there are already some published CPCR documents and some are ongoing. So next slide, please. The role of TC350 is to support this process. First step, and maybe this is also one takeaway from this meeting, whom to contact, please inform CEN-TC350 Working Group 3 Secretary. Additional to this, there are some tasks that need to be undertaken. On the one hand, a task of the product TC, so inform the Dean Secretary, then we need the you need to draft the CPCR and define, for instance, the functional unit, technical properties to be mentioned in the EPD, and other specifications. Our task in CEN-TC350 Working Group 3 is we can provide help and support. We provide templates. We are the point of contact for your questions. We comment the CPCR and we check compliance with EN 15804 plus A2. Additionally, I would like to mention that we consider to organize a webinar for the product TCs in the future in order to further support this exercise. My aim of today is, as a takeaway, on the one hand, that you understand what EN 15804 is in an EPD, that a CPCR is needed, and that you have the right contact. And then, Dieter, I think we come to our last slide, where you have and Dieter, I hand over to you for the closing statement, but these are the people that support your process.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Julia, for this overview. This is indeed a key message. It's as also pointed out in the slides before in the flowchart. CPCR is needed. It can be a separate document or it can be integrated in your product standards. But please track the webinar, which will be organized. There is no date fixed yet, later this year. And if you have questions, you can reach out to us, and we will be happy to help you.
Okay, thank you, Dieter and Julia. That was it for your part. I suggest that we have a 5 minutes break now, so that people can at least stand up, take a coffee or a tea, or go to the toilet. So I have 3 o'clock and 28 minutes on my computer's clock, so we reconvene them at 3:33. Sorry. So at 3:33 sharp, we come back to you. Please bear with us and for the next part. Thank you. Okay. I think we're ready to reconvene. 5 minutes break was very short, but I hope you had some time to take a small break. So let's continue with the standardization request development process. My colleague Alessia is sitting next to me. So please, Alessia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Els, and good afternoon, everyone. I hope you had a refreshing coffee break. We will now jump into the last part of this webinar, and I will guide you through the process for the development of standardization requests. First of all, I would like to start with the legal basis of all the standardization requests, which is the Regulation 1025 from 2012. This regulation recognized CEN, CENELEC, and ETSI as the European standardization organizations, and also regulates the relationship with between the ESOs, the European Standardization Organizations, and the European Commission when it comes to requesting of harmonized standards by the European Commission. And indeed, in Article 10 of this regulation, you can see that this is laid down very, very clearly. Yeah, here graphically, I wanted to represent the process starting from the legislative or regulatory needs, let's say, till the citation of the harmonized standards in the official journal. So the starting point is, of course, the European Commission with the regulatory needs. So usually there is a legislation that needs to be supported by certain standards. And the European Commission developed a standardization request. So the pen is held by the European Commission that is creating the standardization request with the contribution, and we will see later, of CEN and CENELEC. So once CEN and CENELEC accept the standardization request, the technical committees start working on the standards, and these standards undergo an assessment, this so-called HAS assessment, and Nuno will tell you about it later. And if so, after the publication, the European Commission will do an extra step in evaluating the conformity of the standards, and if the green light is given by the European Commission, these become harmonized standards, and they are cited in the official journal of the European Union. An extra element that we have to consider for the CPR is that the standardization request that will be drafted by the European Commission will take into consideration the inputs from the CPR Acquis or the fast track. So CEN and CENELEC will not be drafting the standardization request, but the inputs coming from the standardizers will be taken into consideration, as also the European Commission said before in their presentation. Something that is really important for you to keep in mind is that we are now switching from the old system of mandates to the standardization requests. So keep in mind, the mandates are the system that was used before Regulation 1025 entered into force in January 2013, whereas standardization requests are the new and only methods for the European Commission to request standards to the ESOs. And there are differences that we have to take into consideration, and you should enter really into this new mindset. If you're curious to, or if you're looking for the standardization request, you can go to this link and you will find all the new standardization requests after 2013, but not the old mandates. So this table is a recap, and it's not exhaustive, I would say, of the differences between mandates and standardization requests. You are used to work with mandates that are open, have no deadline, whereas standardization requests will have a fixed deadline. So it means that after the standardization request expires, there will be no legal basis for the citation of the standards in the OJU. The deliverables in mandates are proposed by the technical committees, whereas in the standardization requests are fixed and are fixed by the European Commission, so in the standardization request. And also something important is that the single deadline, so the list of standards, for each standard, there will be a fixed deadline within which the TCs will have to deliver the published standard, whereas for mandates, there were not really deadlines. Something else which is relevant is that you're probably used to work with the system of TC answers to the mandate in case you wanted to add essential characteristics or to modify basically or to expand the scope of the mandate. This will no longer be possible. The system will no longer exist, but it will still be possible to amend standardization requests. However, this process will be led by the European Commission and will require basically a new standardization request to be issued and to amend the existing one. So jumping into the different steps of the standardization request development process, I will guide you through all the steps. For certain of them, I will go a bit quicker because I don't want to spend too much time. So for instance, Let's start with the general inputs to the standardization work that each year are collected by the European Commission in the so-called Annual Union Work Program for European Standardization. Here you find the link to the program 2023. So this is a programmatic document that the Commission develops to define the priorities for standardization for the year to come. This year, for instance, we have some references to construction products. And then there is always a phase of drafting and consultation on the standardization request. So at this moment, we receive a first draft standardization request from the European Commission. And again, this is drafted based on inputs coming from the CPR Akey or the fast track. So CEN and CENELEC receive the standardization request, and we do a series of tasks. The first one and the most important is to inform our members and the relevant technical bodies that this is happening so that they can react and participate in the consultation process. And as we will see in the following slides, this process is led by the standardization request ad hoc group. And in this phase, we provide comments to the European Commission on all the aspects related to the standardization request. So the SRAG, Standardization Request Ad Hoc Group, is a group established in order to make comments on the standardization request and to negotiate, if we want, certain aspects with the European Commission. And they really coordinate between all the stakeholders, so the members, the national members, the TCs, so the technical committees involved, and they advise the BTs on problematic issues. There is always a convener leading the work. The secretariat is held by CCMC, and there is, let's say, a mixed composition, among which there are, of course, representative of the concerned technical bodies. So it means that there will be people participating in meetings and providing comments on behalf of their technical committees. And for this, it is very, very important that there is a good coordination between the representatives in the SRAG and the rest of the technical committee so that the representative can speak with one voice. And of course, there are also the national members represented there in order to convey their national position. So the role of the SRAG is very important because this is in this consultation phase, the SRAG has the chance to point out all the problematic aspects. So, for instance, related to the deadlines, as I said before, in standardization requests, there will be fixed deadlines for you to deliver the published standard. If you believe that the time as requested by the European Commission is too short in order to deliver the standard, then you should flag it at this stage and ask for more time. The same goes for the expiry date of the standardization request. And every key aspect might affect the technical work, including the essential characteristics listed, the clashes and thresholds and so on, provided that these aspects should be tackled in the very first place in the CPR Akey and in the fast track. So the idea is really to do the work in the CPR Akey and in the fast track, and then to limit this technical input as much as possible in this consultation phase. There is also the chance to bring funding needs in this context. And at the end of this consultation process, the SRAG will provide a recommendation to the CEN and CENELEC BTs on the acceptance or rejection of the standardization request. And once the standardization request is accepted, the SRAG will be disbanded because it will have completed their work. Moving forward, after this consultation phase, the European Commission finalized the stable draft of the standardization request. So let's say the technical content and the deadlines and all the aspects that I mentioned before are agreed. And there is a series of tasks that we will do in CEN. So we will have a final meeting of the SRAG. We will fill in together some standardization request checklist that we will see in the next slide, in order to highlight the major aspects of the standardization request. And we will submit this checklist to the European Commission. Here, I will not go into the details of the checklist, but it's just to give you a taste of what it is. It's a common checklist. So there is a part for CEN and the part for the European Commission. This checklist is to be filled in with the idea of highlighting any possible problem and any key relevant aspects to flag to the European Commission. And this checklist will be also forwarded to the member states at the moment that they will vote. So it's very important to be careful when we complete the checklist. There is always a phase of inter-service consultation within the Commission, so within the different Directorate Generals of the European Commission to come to a final agreement within the European Commission. And when there is a stable draft of the standardization request, this is presented to the Committee on Standard. Committee on Standard is a committee composed of the member states, so the various member states of the European Union that will have a final say on the acceptance or rejection. Well, I would say on the issuance of the standardization request by the European Commission. So the Committee on Standard is informed. They have the chance to provide comments. This is also why it's very important that there is a good connection between our national members and their national representative at member state level, so that there is a good communication flow. And at this time, the Commission also circulate the checklist completed from their side, so that the member states have the chance to see both parts, the CEN part and the European Commission part of the checklist. And there is a vote then taking place in COS Committee on Standard. And in this phase, the Committee on Standard will approve the standardization request. And when this happens, when the vote is launched in the Committee on Standard, we will immediately inform the BT in CEN and or CENELEC. We will also have a final meeting of the SRAG to provide the recommendation to the BT for the acceptance or rejection on the standardization request. So let's say this is a very critical phase, an important phase. If the Committee on Standard, after the vote closes, approves the standardization request, we will immediately launch a vote in CEN and or CENELEC for the approval, or I would say for the acceptance of the standardization request. The vote will last 4 weeks within CEN and CENELEC, after which, in more or less in parallel, the European Commission will adopt the standardization request as an implementing act. And once it is adopted, it will be officially notified to the ESOs, so to CEN and CENELEC, which will have 1 month to react by accepting or rejecting the standardization request. This is why it's very important that all the steps are taken swiftly, so to be able to reply with this within this 1 month. Oops. And then after the acceptance, there are some, for all the duration of the standardization request until the expiry date of the standardization request, there are certain steps that we need to fill. We will see it later better. So the work program, the annual reports, and the final report. Yes, here we have 2-3 slides about the standardization request model so that you start to get familiar with how the standardization request will look like. It will look differently than the mandates. There will be more elements, and it will be also structured in a certain way that is very recognizable. So As I said, the standardization request contains the list of standards to be provided by CEN and CENELEC. The list is exhaustive and is very precise. It means that the TCs cannot autonomously decide to start in developing additional standards, because they will not be cited. There will be not a legal basis for the citation of these standards in the OJU. So you should really stick to the list provided in the standardization request. And the deadlines in the standardization request are imperative, meaning that after the expiry date of the standardization request, there will be no legal basis for the citation of the standard in the OJU. So it's very important that you stick to the deadline. And it's very important that you negotiate the deadlines during the shrug process, so that you accept something that is feasible. Article 2 of the standardization request indicates that CEN shall submit a draft program to the Commission. So here it's more, let's say, an elaboration on the list provided by the European Commission in the standardization request on how CEN intends to carry out the work. So it's, I will show you in this slide. Yeah, this is an example or a template of the work program. So there are details about which TC is developing the standard, which is the title and the scope of the standards, and also let's say the timeline foreseen for the development of the standards. Article 3 is about reporting. So each standardization request mentions that CEN shall submit first annual reports. It's usually 1 year after the acceptance, but it can vary. And also it shall provide annual reports each year and the final report, which is usually, of course, before the expiry date of the standardization request. And Article 4 is instead about the validity of the standardization request. So there will be a fixed expiry date. Here is an example from another sector, pyrotechnic articles. And it also, in Article 5, it is also mentioned if a previous mandate is superseded by the standardization request. So you will find the mention in the new standardization request that the old mandates are superseded, meaning that there is no legal validity anymore for the previous mandate. Yes, Annex 1 of the standardization request lists the standards to be developed. So there is the title. Well, in this case, is revision. So there is already a reference number, the title, and the deadline for the adoption. Yeah, it's usually 1 or 2 tables in Annex 1. Annex 2 is instead, let's say, a text with requirements for the standards that are referred to in in Annex 1. So to the list of standards that we saw before. So there is really, it's detailed there, which requirements the standards shall meet in order to be compliant with the standardization request. And of course, there will be also a table with the essential characteristics, which will be fixed. Again, the input on this will come from the fast track or the CPR Akey, but indeed they will be fixed. And if one day will be needed to add the essential characteristics, this will require an amendment of the standardization request. And indeed, this leads me to my last point, which is about amendment and revision of existing standardization request. This is a possibility because, of course, it could always emerge during the development of standards, both by CEN or the European Commission, that there is a need to add standards, to modify certain requirements, or to extend certain deadlines. So in this case, there is a possibility to amend, but of course, it is extremely important that the TCs communicate with CCMC first, that there is a delay, for instance, so that some needs emerge so that we can communicate accordingly to the European Commission. Just keep in mind that it's not a light procedure, because amending or revising a standardization request, meaning going through everything that I showed before, so all the steps that I showed before all over again. It's a new standardization request de facto. Yeah, because keep in mind that indeed this is an implementing act, so it means that that member states need to be involved whenever a standardization request needs to be issued. I believe I mentioned everything from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alessia. So up to the last part of this webinar, my colleague Nuno, sitting also in the same room, as you can see, is going to provide you with some tools on how to improve the compliance of these harmonized standards under CPR. So please, Nuno.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the last set of slides. As Elle said, the goal of this part of the presentation is really to inform you or give you an update on the available tools that will help you to improve compliance of harmonized standards in support of the CPR. So the first tool is a tool that is very well known for you, is the HAS assessment system. So the new HAS contract was signed in August 2022, and then it became operational in October 2022. Compared to the previous HAS contract, we can say that the new HAS contract has improved. On one hand, there is an increase of budget. So the current or the new HAS contract has a budget of 10.8 million euro, which is in fact is an increase of 2 million euro compared to the previous contract. So we want to be in a situation that we don't run out of money by the end of the contract. Another aspect is that the communication tasks for the HAS consultants, so to have meetings with the TCs, have increased compared to the previous contract from 20% to 25%. Is not a lot, but I think it's important that there is more possibilities for communication between the TCs and the consultants. Another aspect that has improved is the introduction of a less confirmatory assessment. The acronym is LCA. I know that LCA also stands for life cycle assessment. Maybe there could be some confusion, but in the framework of the HAS assessment system, LCA means the less flexible assessment in place. So this term, by the way, was put in place by the European Commission. And there is a new outcome called conditional compliance. So if you look at the HAS assessment report, you're going to have, of course, the possibility to have a compliant assessment result, a lack of compliant assessment result, but you also have this new outcome, conditional compliance, not to be confused with the old partial compliance. And the conditional compliance outcome is basically used when the consultant considers that the standard is compliant, and the only issue preventing the consultant to give a positive assessment is the fact that the standard, the draft harmonized standards, contain draft normative references that are being developed at the same time as the harmonized standard, as a package. So under this situation, the consultant could provide a conditional compliance outcome. One of the differences as well compared to the previous contract is that under the new HAS contract, the HAS assessment reports are anonymous to comply with GDPR, meaning that if you open a report, you will not know who was the consultant that performed the assessment. In any case, this is not critical, because if you receive an assessment with lack of compliant result, you can organize a meeting with the consultant, and then obviously you will know who was the consultant that perform the assessment. So when can assessments be requested? So for you to know, each work item will have a maximum of 4 assessments per lifetime of such a work item. The first one is the first working draft HAS assessment, which is optional but highly recommended. It's very important that you request this assessment to receive the comments from the consultant as early as possible during the drafting stage, and this will also increase the chances later on to receive, for instance, at formal vote stage, a positive assessment. Then another stage where assessments can take place is the inquiry, which is a mandatory assessment, the formal vote, which is also a mandatory assessment, and in case the formal vote assessment is lack of compliance, you have the possibility to request one additional assessment called the less confirmatory assessment. Again, optional, but highly recommended. And this LCA assessment is a full assessment. It's not a simplified assessment. So in case you receive a formal vote lack of compliant assessment, the first thing is that for homegrown standards, which is the case in the construction sector, basically the formal vote is not launched. So the formal vote is put on hold in case we receive a lack of compliant assessment. And there is this new stage created, stage H, that you can see here inside this red box, which is a stage of 12 weeks to help the technical committees to, let's say, consider the comments from the consultant, revise the final draft accordingly when needed, eventually organize a meeting with the consultant, and then after that you can request, and it's recommended that you request this less confirmatory assessment. So from the moment that CCMC makes the request to Ernst & Young for the HAS assessment, normally Ernst & Young should upload the HAS assessment report within 5 weeks. So this is exactly the same as in the previous contract. And as soon as they upload the report, the TC secretary will receive an email, and the HAS assessment report will be attached in that email. And then the TC secretary needs to circulate the report within the working group. So on this screen, what you can see is an example of an email that a TC secretary would receive when the report is available. Meeting requests. So one of the important rules is that you can only organize a meeting with the consultant in case you receive a lack of compliant assessment. Compared to the previous contract, you cannot contact the consultant directly, which was the case before. And if you wish to have a meeting with the consultant, which is highly recommended following a lack of compliant assessment, these requests must be made 3 to 4 weeks in advance, and you need to use these links. So there are a lot of questions in this survey, it's a page basically produced by Ernst & Young. And after that, the consultant should come back to you and basically agree on the date that you have provided for a meeting. Now, moving to the topics, there are a number of important guidance documentation that you need to be aware and use when you draft your harmonized standards in support of the CPR. The first one is, of course, the Senelec simple template for drafting standards. So this template is applicable both for harmonized standards, but also for standards that are not harmonized. So this is always the starting point. The second tool is very important. It's the standardization request. And as my colleague Alessia explains in the annexes of the standardization request, you will have the technical content that you need to include in your harmonized standard, like the list of essential characteristics and other important elements. The Senelec Guide 36 and the Senelec Guidance Core Rules are two important guidance documents that will help you in the drafting of harmonized standards in support of the CPR. You can use today those two guidance documents. Guide 36, it's a more formal document, and the Core Rules is a more practical document. And because of the information that you actually received today, that TC answers to the mandate are not valid and cannot be used, there is then a need to revise the Guide 36 to align with the standardization request approach. And because we also received multiple requests from stakeholders that there are way too many guidance documents, the idea is to have only one guidance document, potentially withdraw the Core Rules document and integrate the important information of the Core Rules in the Guide 36. The AVCP guidance, you can use it today, but because of the recent developments on the discussion on a potential having a new AVCP for environmental sustainability, we will also work together with the Commission at a certain point in time to revise the AVCP guidance document. The Annex ZA template is an important tool that you need to use. Remember, it's a template, so you cannot change the text, but you can, of course, use it to insert the necessary information there in the relevant fields. And there is also the checklist for harmonized standards, which is currently under revision, but we come back to that in the next slides. So the Senelec Guide 36 is under the revision. This is also what Christoph was mentioning at the beginning, that we need guidance, solid guidance that do not change and are agreed between Senelec and the Commission. We are revising the Guide 36, as I said, because one of the reasons is that there are multiple documents and we need to have only one single focused document for construction TCs. Another reason is because, as I said, TC answers to the mandate are not valid anymore. So we need to remove all the references to TC answers to the mandate and focus in the standardization request approach. Guide 36 is also being revised in order to ensure that the TCs understand that we must have a full alignment between the harmonized standards and the standardization requests. So all the list of essential characteristics in the standardization request, classes and thresholds, products covered, intended uses, they need to be used in the same way in the harmonized standards with the same wording. So this is important to be having in mind. Guide 36 is also being revised to remove some specific clauses that are not applicable, to include some examples that can be useful for you. We are also explaining in the guides, in the revised Guide 36, the use of normative references in harmonized standards. So remember, they all need to be dated. There were already many comments in the chat about this. They need to be dated, they need to be published, they cannot be draft standards, they cannot be withdrawn standards. So we will give clear guidance as well in the Guide 36. And as I said, because the VCP guidance document is expected to be revised in the future, one of the ideas is to include the VCP clauses, templates inside the future Sense and Like Guide 36. With regards to the checklist, so I have two last slides. With the checklist for harmonized standards, we saw that in 2020 and 2021, a very high volume of lack of compliance assessment for all sectors. And that's why the technical boards in Sense and Like put in place a number of measures to improve the compliance of, or to improve the compliance rate of harmonized standards. One of the measures was that the technical boards approved the mandatory use of an horizontal checklist for harmonized standards. So this checklist applied to all sectors except for the construction sector, because the construction and CPR are so specific. And that's why a dedicated specific CPR checklist was also developed. So this means that this checklist is applicable today. We invite you to use this checklist in case you are today drafting harmonized standards. And before submitting these draft harmonized standards, you need to check the compliance of your harmonized standards against the CPR checklist. So this is applicable for all stages: first working draft, inquiry stage, and formal vote stage. Now, there is a novelty. Very recently, the technical board, so last month, the technical board approved a new mandatory common checklist. Again, this common checklist is horizontal and covers all the sectors, again, excepting the construction sector. What is special about this checklist is that it has one part that is applicable only to SEN and SENELEC, but there is one part that is common, meaning that it is the same for SEN, SENELEC, and the HAS consultants. So this is quite important. So when the consultants are checking the standards, the criteria that they check is the same criteria that you will also check your standards against this checklist. But there is not yet a CPR checklist that is common for construction TCs and the construction HAS consultants. So the next step is to use this common checklist and then align it with the specificities with the CPR. So some of these criteria could be revised, some potentially could be deleted, and new elements could be added. The last slide is just to show you, on the left side is what you see on the SEN and SENELEC boss pages, that you have the current checklist. Now it's not perfect, it needs to be improved. And we are working on a revised common checklist, as I said, for processes of construction products, the HAS consultants. You can see here on the right side, just a flavor of how this common checklist could look like in the future for the construction sector, for standards in support of the CPR. The Guide 36 is under development. The checklist for CPR is under development. And as soon as these documents are then developed, approved by the technical boards, and also we need to develop them in close collaboration, both the Guide 36 and the checklist with the European Commission. And once this is available, of course, we will then circulate to all of you. We will organize also another webinar where we can go in detail through the Guide 36 and through the CPR checklist. So I pass it to you, Els, and I believe now it's time for Q&A. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Nuno, for your intervention and the overview of the tools available. Many of the questions were already replied while all of you were talking, so thanks a lot for that. We have some time left, about 20 minutes still to reply the questions, even orally, should you wish to do so. So just a message to all the speakers, if you see a question that you would like to address right away by talking instead of writing, please do so. And should the attendees still have questions, of course, there is still some time to submit questions.
So maybe I can already answer one of the questions from Eva Marake. So when will the revised CPR checklist will be published? So the first thing is that we are working now on the revision of the checklist. And then after that, so we will develop this in the dedicated group of BT Working Group 9. So it's a working group that supports the technical board with topics related to the CPR. So first it will be develop that in the second part of this year, so after the summer. Then we need to have a close discussion with the European Commission, and then we will discuss as well with our technical board members and permanent delegates. And then if they agree with the approach, we will then hopefully, we hope that by the end of this year or a bit earlier, we will have this CPR, the revised CPR checklist available for you.
Okay, thank you, Nuno. Alessia, there's one question you would like to reply on the HES checklist?
Yes, indeed. It's the question about when the checklist will be applicable and if it's retroactive. So no, the standards that have been submitted to HAS assessment will not have to resubmit a checklist. The new checklist, as presented by Nuno, will be available soon for the construction sector and will be applicable mandatorily as of October 2023.
Thank you, Alessia.
And I can reply regarding the templates for milestone 1 and 3. So the template yesterday was sent to the technical committee, so this will be circulated into the technical committees in the coming days.
Okay, great, thank you.
I can reply a question from Edmar. The question is, if approved standardization requests are published somewhere, including those forming the basis for the Akey process. So my colleague Alessia showed you that there is a standardization request database, and as soon as a standardization, it's publicly available. So as soon as a standardization request is adopted by the Commission and approved by SEN and/or SENELEC, then the standardization request will be publicly available in this database. And of course, the old mandates cannot be found there, but the approved standardization requests are available there and publicly available on this link that is on the slides.
Okay, thank you. Can I maybe suggest to open the poll, because we have a live poll also available, just to avoid that people leave without answering the poll that we really like to launch, because it is very valuable for us to improve our webinars in the future. So before you leave, please reply to the 3 small questions we have, and then you can continue. I would like to thank, of course, everybody for joining, should you want to leave open. Any other questions?
Yes, so I can reply a question from Thierry Bardot. The question is the renewal of the HAS system. That yes, it took some time because of some. So there was a gap between the old contract and the current new contract. There was unfortunately a gap, and then the system only became operational a couple of months later. So there were some administrative tasks to put in place, like rehiring the consultants, put IT tools in place. For the time being, under the construction sector, we don't have many standards that were basically assessed by the consultants yet. We are waiting for standardization requests so we can we can proceed with the assessments. Because we have one standardization request for construction products, the space heating appliances. This means that there were 3 or 4 standards that were already assessed by the consultants, and there were some additional ones that were also assessed on the basis of the original mandates. So we don't have backlog, I would say, and we had so far around 10 to 11 standards that were assessed by the consultants under the construction products regulation sector.
Yes, I would like to reply to the question from Raymond Moritz. If all decided standards have to be dated, what will be the procedure? Sorry, I lost the question. What will be the procedure to keep the harmonized standards updated if one of the cited standard is updated? So you have the possibility to amend or revise the standards that are published in order to update the normative references. And if the standard is after formal vote but before publication, there is a fast procedure that is possible to request to the technical board in order to update the normative references and make them up to date.
And I would like to reply to Paul Hoffner regarding what is the process for harmonized standards being implemented under the current mandate. As the Commission clarified today as well, this is an exceptional procedure as mandates are outdated. However, if ATC is interested to amend or revise a standard based on the current mandate, the process is exactly as we've had until now, and we have to be very careful that we are 100% aligned with the original mandate. So we cannot variate from the original mandate.
There is a question from Raymond Moritz, when all these mentioned guidelines will be available. So for the Guide 36, actually, we are quite advanced. So the Sensen-like BT Working Group 9 already produced a proposal. There is a draft document that was submitted to the European Commission. There is some fine-tuning needed. We need to rediscuss the document with the Commission. And as I said, maybe the VCP guidance document will have to be revised, and we may need to integrate that in the Guide 36. So we hope that in the second half of the year, maybe towards the end, we're going to have the revised checklist and we're going to have the revised Guide 36 available. So when you have your standardization requests available, you have these 2 important guidance documents to help you in the drafting of your harmonized standard. So we will work together with the Commission to have these documents available as soon as possible. I think you can go ahead, Oscar.
Yes, I hope you can see us. Just a clarification about the consultants. So we have the HAS consultants that are checking the standards that you develop in your work in Senate. So this is one process that was already explained in a very detailed way. So this HAS consultants, there was some comments how it works. This is the old same consultant that we had before. Now this process is managed by a consultancy firm, and for the moment we have 2 consultants dealing with this process. We need 2, and we may need more, because in the coming years we expect a lot of standards to be submitted for assessment and citation. And also, as it was said before, there is a check not only in the final stage, there are checks in inquiry, informal vote, so there are a lot of possibilities to get a check of the content of the standard. So this is one kind of standard of consultant we have in the process. In addition, we have a specific consultant helping us to deal with the CPR Akey, the usual process. They are Baclav Hadrava and Julio Salazar, and they are mainly focused on the coordination and the support of our activities in the CPR Akey groups. They are working in the 4 groups already. They are very active, and you have also their emails probably if you were involved. These 4 groups will remain in the hands of these consultants, And we have also now DTI, the Danish Technical Institute, that will support us in additional tasks related to the CPR Akey process, including the support of the assessment of the fast-track documents that we will receive from you. These are other group of consultants that may punctually also help us on the subgroup on environmental sustainability, and they may have also additional tasks related to all the process. But this is a kind of third group of consultants, and they should not be mixed. So every group has a specific task. You probably will be a lot in contact with Julio and Bartla if you are in the CPR Akey process. You will have more contact with the new experts from DTI, with Jacob, Peter, and the other colleagues if you are going through the fast track. And the HAS consultants is a different approach that will be directly coordinated by SEN. Okay, so I hope now it's clear, because I think there was a bit of misunderstanding with so many different consultants from different sides.
So there is a question from Francesco Fontana. I understand that this question might be related to the use of normative references in harmonized standards. So what we are trying to do is include in the Guide 36 very detailed guidance on how to use normative references in harmonized standards. In case the standards are then offered to the Commission, and then there is an issue with one of the normative references that, for instance, got outdated, the technical boards approved a procedure that allows, in a very quick way, only with BT approval, to update the normative references, and then we could reoffer the standard as a quick amendment to the European Commission. So the technical board put this system in place really to help the TCs in case of issues with normative references after the standards are published.
I would like also to reply to the question about the ABCP system for environmental sustainability. We are in the process to adopt a delegated act that will allow the application of ABCP system 3+ for environmental sustainability for standards under the current CPR. So we will not need to wait until the new CPR to have environmental sustainability information in the declaration of performance. This is an ongoing process. We hope that the delegated act will be ready before the end of this year, and this will unblock the situation about the third-party validation of environmental sustainability. This third-party validation includes the assessment of the data used for the assessment and the assessment itself. It does not include factory production control. The factory production control remain in the remit of manufacturers. So there will be an obligation to establish an initial assessment of the process and the data used, but the factory production control will not be covered. And for the moment, this ABCP system 3+ will only be applied to the European assessment documents and the harmonized standards for which there is essential characteristic environmental sustainability. For the moment, none of the standards have this kind of information. The first standards to have this information will be solid fuel stocks. So this implementation is now being triggered because we want to start slowly implementing this and make sure that the system is fully operational when the new CPR will enter into force, and it will apply slowly to all the products cited in the coming years for which there will be these environmental sustainability essential characteristics.
Okay, thank you, Oscar. I think we can close down the webinar here. A few questions are still left, but we need to investigate a bit more complex. So as promised, we will send you the recording and the presentations of today. So you have that already available should you want to listen back. And then afterwards, we create for you a Q&A report that contains all the questions, all the replies. And we will add also a list with the acronyms and their explanations. So hopefully that helps you on your path to the CPR Harmonized standards. So thanks a lot, everybody.
Thanks,
Yes, of course. We also have a closure remark. Sorry, I forgot about that. I was very in a hurry. Alessandro, are you still there? So we can go. Let me see
Yes.
the next slide. I think we have just one slide for you for the closing remarks. Please go ahead.
Yes, if you can put my so I hope you found this webinar useful and interesting, informative. I see from the results of the poll that most of you did, which is a good thing. But most important than that, I hope that you now feel motivated and confident to start or restart your standardization activities under the CPR. And for those experts, I'll leave you with some advice. The first one is do participate in the Akey process. This is an opportunity that is there for you, mainly the fast track. You know, the commission didn't have to open this possibility, but they are opening this possibility because they understand that some mandates, those at the bottom of the list, will have to wait. So you have an opportunity to speed that process up. So take this opportunity. That's my first advice. So the second one, have a plan. Define the approach and the time frame. So see if you are under the normal route or the fast track route, and then if you have to go down the fast track, think about whether you want to do it as a TC or with the collaboration of other TCs. Think about if you want to address the full family, or if you want to extend the scope or reduce the scope, as we saw in the previous presentation. And think about the time frame, because as we saw before, that the fast track, it has a very short time frame, so you need to plan for this. Consider the standards that need development. Don't think only about the product standards, because also, as we saw before, you may have to develop complementary product category rules according to 1504 or other test methods. So do consider that what needs to be in place and ready before you start developing the harmonized product standards. You shouldn't rush into writing the standards without having the standardization request, or at least without having a good idea of how the standardization request will look like. So you should have started that process, and you should have a good idea by discussing with the Commission, with CCMC, how the standardization request will look like. Liaise with member states if you can. That's what Anmin was saying, that they were now contacting the national contact points. We can also do that through the national standardization bodies. So try to have that work done, and also liaise with the European Commission, but always try to do it through CCMC, so you can do it in a coordinated way. And last of all, seek support from CCMC. There are guidance documents. They are there to help you. So if you are struggling, you can seek support from CCMC. So that would be my last advice. So with this, I wish you a good rest of the day. And I don't know if the Commission still wants to say some final remarks, so I'll give you the floor.
I think we have already exhausted all the audience, so I would just thank you everybody for your collaboration, for your support. I just want to give you a positive message that all the problems in the past, we are in the process to solve them, and you already have seen all our efforts in the last months and to do it, and we will have more news in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you, Oscar. Thank you, Alessandra. And of course, as I was mentioning already, thank you everybody else who joined today, all speakers, for your valuable inputs and clarifications on the matters. So I would suggest again to close down the webinar here. we will inform you about the materials later. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.